Good morning, Sense of Things. Welcome to the Sense of Things podcast with Ron and Jeff. And we have part two of an episode we just did. If you haven't watched part one yet, go back. We're covering some of the some things we've never covered really, things like the SOM rule and some other economic factors and charts and things like that give us an idea of where we are in the cycle. So stay tuned and we'll be right back. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Sense of Things with Jeff and Ron. Ron, how you doing, my friend?
Good morning, Jeff. Yep. Unfortunately, we got to continue the conversation about recession indicators. I'm going to bring up my screen now. We're going to go through part two, and I screwed up the economist's name. I don't know. I'm not sure. I said his name was Cameron Howard. I don't know how I came up with that. His name is Campbell
Harvey.
Now, the interesting part about this, and I didn't bring up the other charts, but we have been talking about credit card delinquencies and credit card carryover debt for over a year, about a year now. And here's the interesting thing. Every chart tells a story. I've said that a million times too. This chart tells it all.
Yeah.
We have credit card carryover debt at all-time highs. It breached 1.1 trillion. And now the 30, 60, and 90-day delinquency rate is absolutely peaking. And also, by the way, at an average of around 21.6%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm speechless because I'm trying to figure out how long can this continue before the consumer says, screw you, I'm not paying $15 for a Big Mac meal.
Yeah.
All right, which has already started, by the way.
Which is already happening. Yeah.
And that's already. But just in general, like, how can this carry over to the point where if they're delinquent on these credit card balances, think about the interest that's piling up.
Mm-hmm.
The interest part of this is going to be 10, 15, 20% of their overall balance. I can't even calculate this. My brain isn't working at that level to try and figure out what this is actually going to mean.
I did the math for this with a client because we were talking about his kid that he was really struggling and was using credit cards and all that. And I said, do the math. It's going to take him 18 years if he's paying the minimum payments, 18 years to pay off that debt, assuming he never charges another dime going forward for the next 18 years, which
he's live their best life.
Yeah. And the reality is it's not even people that are trying to live their best life. It's people trying to keep their head above water at this point. When you've seen food inflation, I love when the government tries to play the game of, but inflation's come down from 9 to 3. Yeah, but it didn't go backwards. We're just piling 3% on top of the 20 or 30% in cost raises going on. So it's not back. And our wages have not kept up with that. As a small business owner, I can't afford to pay somebody 20 or 30% more. It's not going to happen. So what do? I just don't hire somebody in those cases. So those of us that are here on staff, we work harder every day in a couple of my companies.
But if you think about it, I think it's the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, that monitors companies for price gouging or predatory pricing. And if you think about it, because when we started to bring this up, if you take a look at the chart, I think it was September, October of last year when we started to see the credit card interest rate precipitously tick up from an average of 16 to 17 to 21%. And you don't think that the credit card companies don't know about consumer spending habits? Because look at the spike up of the 30, 60, and 90-day as those interest rates were going up. And my whole thing is, where the hell are the politicians and the FTC?
I was just about to say that.
I'm sorry, 21%? No, you got to have something more reasonable because the bankruptcy rate is just going to spike up. And there's more lawyers in law school than there are lawyers that are practicing. They want a good, steady flow of business in the next 3 to 5 years, become a bankruptcy lawyer.
Yeah, no kidding.
And by the way, get your money up front.
Yeah. Which I've never
get a retainer.
Yeah, which I've never understood how bankruptcy attorneys actually make money, because
they get their money up front.
Yeah, but where do the people get the money?
People are paying them on their credit cards.
Yeah, I take credit cards of all kinds.
We shouldn't be laughing, but God damn, this is just bad news.
Oh, it's horrible, and it's going to affect a generation of people. This is going to drag on for the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, this isn't going to be resolved or flushed out in a year or two.
No, it's going to take years for people. And if you have a 30, a 60, a 90-day delinquency and it goes and charged off, that's 7 years your credit is going to be massively affected.
Yes.
At this point.
Yeah. Try and buy a house, try and buy a car, get an apartment.
Insurance, your car insurance, your homeowner's insurance are going to go through the roof. Everything is affected by your credit score today. This is a big problem.
Yeah. All right. We beat this enough. It's just a terrible.
But I think it leads to, we were having these conversations last summer as we were seeing those balances go up and go up, and then interest rates started going up, and it's how long are these people going to be able to hang on? And then we started to see where the credit that was being granted was going down, where these credit card companies are protecting themselves. And I get they're keeping the rates up because they know there's going to be a crap ton of delinquencies. So they've got to make their money somehow, which is to stick it to the people that still can pay.
Yeah, I agree. And I know we talked about this when we were going through the SOM rule in part 1. Yeah. But if you just take a look at the chart here, every time other than a little blip right here, when it did invert, looks like for maybe a day or a week, basically every time it inverted on the way up, as it uninverted, is when we came into a recession. The interesting thing about this time frame is as we were coming up from a precipitous fall, this was the end of 23, early 24, when everybody predicted the recession or a recessionary condition. Now we actually briefly uninverted for, I think, half an hour in the last week, but here we are again. So we have a confluence of factors here. Here's the 210. But what does a recession look like in these circumstances? What I mean by that is it shallow? Is it deep? Is it deep and wide? Is it shallow and wide? People have been saying we've been having a rolling recession across the country and across sectors for a year and a half now. But we don't pray for it. We've talked about this before. We do need a flush out, and there will create opportunities for investors that are smart and listen to their advisors too. But this could be another brick on the cracked ice that we've talked about before.
Yeah, and that I totally agree. And you and I have been saying this, and I felt like just a broken record, just saying, okay, everything is pointing to that, but more and more things are pointing to it. And like I said, that last straw for me was Friday's employment report, and the unemployment number. That's been the only thing holding people up. And quite frankly, because I own a wealth management practice, but I also own a co-working space. So I've got all these different companies and people working remotely and things like that. And I cannot tell you how many people just hearing conversations in the space that work for big companies that are talking about, oh man, there's layoffs going on. So I think
Intel just had a huge layoff.
Yeah. And a couple of other companies that I've got people that remote workers that work out of my space here. And these are guys that are in the technology space. And they're like, yeah, we're hearing rumors about layoffs and stuff like that. That's not a good sign. It's really not a good sign.
Especially in the tech sector is usually ahead of the curve there.
Yeah, it is. Because they tend to overdo it, which they did during the pandemic. And then they start trimming people, and they typically trim the bottom 5 to 10% every year anyhow.
Yeah. So a couple more slides here. I bring this up. This is the Fed, the CME Fed Watch. So in September, which is the one on the left here, this is identifying that there could be an 85% chance of a 50% rate cut. And I thought it was interesting because if we take a look at this to a week ago, right? I'm sorry. Let me go back a month ago. There wasn't a huge, it was less, but my whole point is you're going back a month ago and it was 72%. Yeah. This was before a lot of those reports. And then we look to the right. This would be the November meeting. They're looking at a 70 basis cut by November. Between now and November, 75 basis points, we could potentially be down.
In an election year, I just don't see that happening.
No, and then just very quickly to wrap up on this, and then you got December, and then you got January. I just wanted to show the next 4 meetings.
Yep.
Basically, this is showing a 43% chance by December for basically a 150 rate cut, and then by January you're looking at a 40% chance of a 175 rate cut.
Yeah.
Between now and
if we cut rates that fast, there is a lot more issues going on than.
Yeah. So actually, and look, folks, we need to just preface this because Jeff and I have always had some fun with this. November and December of last year, they were expecting, depending on who you listen to, 4 to 6 cuts this year.
Yep.
Next year, they were looking at 4 to 6 cuts. Okay, we haven't had any, and we're already in August.
Yeah.
We may have 1 or 2 this year, and they're looking at least 4 for next year. Again, these are all futures, projections, speculation, right? This doesn't mean it's going to happen. And even at an 85.5% certainty, this is still speculation. Yeah. And unless the numbers even more so precipitously come down, and we got the political slant involved here, I don't think it's going to happen before the election. Thoughts?
I honestly don't. And if you look at history, I don't ever remember a time during a presidential election year where the Fed cut rates anywhere less than 6 months but before an election, because they just don't want to be, they want to be completely apolitical, and they don't want to be seen as helping or hurting either side in those cases. Although they're not political, they are, because it's like they don't want to be involved in politics at all. So we're just not going to do anything, which could cause even more havoc as we go in.
Little bit of history. So it's funny you said that. I just saw something about a week ago that in 92, George H.W. Bush, there was at least 4 cuts prior to the presidential election.
Okay.
And he still blamed Greenspan for not cutting more and sooner. Yep. Because he basically said that the effects of this were positive 6 months after the election.
Sure.
So there was at least 4 rate cuts prior. And then also Volcker in 78, 79 was being, or 79, 80 was being pressured to do rate cuts, but he didn't because he said that it would have been political.
Yeah.
So anyway, we got stuff going on both sides there.
Yeah, that's amazing. No matter what happens, one or the other is going to complain about it. So it's really, they're damned if they do, damned if they don't. But I would prefer they just step back from the political world and go, okay, we're going to follow the numbers, which I hope that's what they're doing. The people that, it's so funny watching the market drop, and then people go, oh, they're going to probably have an emergency rate meet. They're not going to have an emergency meeting. That's going to freaking put it into more of a free fall.
Yes.
At that point. So that's not going to happen. So at best, September.
It may be the right thing to do, but the psychological and the mentality is sell.
Yeah, that's it. It's going to happen. Yeah. Because they told us it's going to happen in September, and if they do it sooner, then it's got to be way worse. And then the market, I think the computers need more Prozac now than the humans do, because they go just crazy at this point. Folks, I hope you enjoyed this. Hope you got a little bit better view of the world from an economic perspective. We're here for you. That's why we do these shows, and we're trying to make them as short as we can. Sometimes we get on to movie topics and we don't, but we're here for you. Please let us know if you like this. Give us an upvote and share this with somebody else, and make sure you're a subscriber, because we put these out on a very regular basis now while the market's coming down. So thanks a lot, and we'll see you guys here the very next time.